Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Unarmored Talk podcast, where we will have real life conversations to help you develop an accurate way of thinking. The way we're going to do this is by gaining a better understanding of how feelings, emotions, and thoughts can influence the outcome of a personal or professional challenge. I'm your host, Mario P. Fields, and today's guest is Stephen Colin, founder of Knucklehead Podcast and founder of Knucklehead Media Group. He's also a United States Marine Corps veteran. Stephen, welcome to the podcast, man.
I appreciate it. Mario. Thank you very much for having me. It's an honor to talk to your audience. Listen, I'm going to tell you like it is. If you're listening to Unarmored Podcast and you haven't subscribed, you haven't gone back and left a review telling Mario just how his deep baritone voice is like it's like silky smooth chocolate, on a cold night. You want to listen to more. So go tell Mario exactly how it is that you feel about him in the review section or wherever you're listening to that. So if you haven't done that yet, shame on you. The price of admission is real simple. Go to his podcast page, click those 5 stars or maybe a 4 for this episode because the guest is running to suck too much. But go to 5 episodes or five stars and go leave him a review.
I appreciate it, Stephen, man. And what people don't know is way back when I was his company first sergeant and he was a corporal. We both went to Iraq together. So this is just a treat for me. But hey, man, tell the world, tell the viewers and listeners a little bit about yourself, Stephen.
Well, I appreciate that. And that's right. So for those of you who are listening, if you're hearing some familiarity, it's because Mario and I, back whenever we were first introduced, it was First Sergeant Fields and I was Corporal Colin.
Yeah.
For some context, the time that we actually came together, I had just gotten married, maybe a few months before when I say we had just got married. So I got married in May of 2006. We deployed to Iraq in September of 2008. So there was a full year from the time that I had actually gotten married, had gotten forward deployed, stationed in Okinawa. And I was there for almost an entire year unaccompanied. So my first year of marriage, my wife was in Dallas and I was in Okinawa, essentially living like a single Marine. And when I say a single Marine, I'm talking about a junior, PFC Lance Corporal type who, was a little wet behind the ears in terms of all things Marine Corps related. But I had just stopped playing football at the University of Nebraska. I had gotten into sales. So I was eager and ambitious and just ready to do whatever it took in order to go make myself successful or be around successful people.
Yeah.
And it was very immature in terms of how all that played out, but it took a long time in order to get my wife over there. So, fast forward a few months from that 1 year of us being unaccompanied, I tell her, hey, listen, I got activated. I'm an individual augmentee from 3rd MLG. I was part of a small logistics group, a landing support company,
right?
To all of a sudden go out to Engineer Support Battalion up on the northern part of the island with First Sergeant Fields at the time. I was going to go work in his COC. So I was like, are you kidding me? All right, well, sounds good. Sounds good, babe. Welcome to Okinawa and coming over here after a year of us being apart. Now I'm going to go deploy to Iraq.
Hey, babe, welcome. Good to have you over here. Arigato gozaimasu. And by the way, I'm about to deploy for about 7 more months, but that's
it. Yep. That's exactly what it was like. So my, my background has been, and I tell that story just for context for the listeners that, whenever we talk about adversity or issues or challenges, what folks decide to share on social media or what folks decide to share in certain circles, it's not always what you see behind the scenes. There's always more heavy lifting going on in the background that requires probably just a swallowing of your pride, like your ego being checked, wrecked, or messed up. And as guys, the biggest thing that we run into is controlling our eyes and our ears for the things that we know we're not supposed to go look at, or the things that we're not supposed to go listen to, because then that's what gets our imagination going, and we start, acting on those desires and everything else.
Well, so, Stephen, you highlighted some key components, and this is Unarmored Talk. Let's jump right into it.
Cool.
I look on social media. I see this Stephen Cologne, successful entrepreneur, businessman in the daytime, I take it. Loves his wife, wonderful family. Looks like he hasn't really endured a lot of challenges. And founder of Knucklehead Media Group, founder of Knucklehead Podcast, which, oh, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, this year by Podcast Magazine, his podcast was rated number 9, right? Number 9 out of thousands of podcasts as a veteran produced and owned podcast. So you see all of this, but I think there were some dark days, Stephen.
Yeah, there was a lot of dark days. The way that I talked about, First Arm Fields, Corporal Colin at the time, to just a backstory in our personal relationship, Mario was, he was further along. He was further along in the process of the Marine Corps. It's further along in the process of being married. And I was in a position right now, I was in a mindset where I was looking for examples of people to go try to emulate the type of relationship that I wanted to have. And if you've ever seen Mario on social media, he's talking about me and my wife. Nicole's a beautiful woman, and his family is a beautiful family. But you see the relationship that he and Nicole have, and it is how it is. She's not overly reactive to him, because Mario's a very animated and ambitious, and go watch some of his YouTube videos, the 543, motivator, and go check it out, and you'll see the distinct difference between her and him. And that's what's cool about a relationship. A marriage is y'all can complement each other real well. I just didn't understand how relationships worked. I mean, my dad, he's been married. He's now on his 6th marriage, and I tell people that all the time. Right. So when I tell people that, I'm not saying that as a judgment or condemning, trying to condemn my dad. I just know that that's not what I wanted. I did not want that. Right. I love my dad. He's a good guy. It stinks that, he got dealt the hand that he dealt, but that's what happens in life. You get dealt the hand that you get dealt, and you got to make something of it. You're right. Yeah. And you do still have a choice. And that's the thing that I love about America. And I can go down a rabbit trail down there about, being able to have a choice, regardless of what your circumstances are.
Stephen, I like how you highlighted that, although the I won't say good or bad, right, accurate way of thinking, the example that you have from your father was multiple, right, marriages.
Right.
And you made the choice to align yourself with mature people and to not say it's okay to have multiple marriages as far as for you. And that, so I think that's, I'm glad you highlighted that and highlighted choices.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Marine Corps provides this example. So let's just remove myself from the Marine Corps for a second, put yourself in a sports example. So that's the analogy that's the environment that I grew up with, right? So my brothers, they played college football. I saw what they experienced, and I was like, oh man, I want to be just like my older brothers. I wanted to grow up playing professional football. My identity was wrapped up in being able to play professional football. My roommate, my freshman year of college, I played football at the University of Nebraska.
Wow.
Is still the
what
punter.
Was your position?
I played split end. I played wide receiver. So I was like slot. Hell yeah, I was good. Was I good as everybody else? Hell no. But I was good. I was, 5'11", 215, run about a 4.6, which, don't be turning this off and fast forward and saying, oh, that's slow. It was fast for me. So was I fast enough as everybody else? Hell no. I probably should have played safety. I probably should have played a different. I'm listed as a place kicker on the roster currently at 5'11", 170 pounds. If you're going to go back and dig through the archives. However, I got recruited to kick and play quarterback. Ended up playing wide receiver for my freshman year, just because that's an example of an ego and being surrounded by people who either will tell you what you want to hear instead of telling you what needs to happen, or you're just not mature enough to take coaching at the time. And that was me.
And I think it's funny you mentioned that, because I think what you just highlighted, well, I believe what you just highlighted is that could be the creation of some dark days, that we're going to get into, is not listening or not processing accurate information and letting your emotions run you wild. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we keep on going back to the past and then trying to bring it current. So staying in the past, the the issue that I had there as a guy was I wasn't willing to lower my ego enough. I always felt like I was having to fight against everybody, myself included,
Right.
in order to prove myself. I had to go and like tell people how great I was or how awesome I was, or go show a different veneer, like surface level of who I was, as opposed to, letting them know, hey, listen, I'm struggling right now.
Right.
I mean, my dad left when I was 15 years old. I've been on my own since then. I moved in with a buddy of mine, paid his parents rent, worked construction, throughout high school. I had to work half the day and then go to football practice at night because my dream was still to go play professional football.
Right.
And I didn't have even though I was still disciplined to go through the work and the tasks, I wasn't disciplined enough to understand that I needed to develop the strategy or the pathway or the game plan collaboratively with mentors who've been there, done that.
Right.
I felt like I needed to just outwork everybody else and go be the taskmaster in my life. And quite frankly, that's a good work ethic to have, but it's not necessarily the great way. It's not the right pathway to go develop what it is that you want in life.
Right.
And I didn't know that at the time. And I wasn't willing to stop and slow down and ask anybody about it. And I sure shit wasn't going to listen to anybody who was trying to tell me that they saw me going down that path.
You're right.
So that was my biggest issue. And I came into the Marine Corps with that mentality. And honestly, the only reason why I'm still married to this day is because I have that mentality.
Yeah, I was going to ask you though, and I've personally watched you develop, as a young man. But how do you think that mentality impacted your marriage?
Oh, good Lord.
I
think,
yeah.
I think so. That's that's really so we keep on going back to the past to talk about the present. So the present is and it's good for your listeners to know that, one, because they're going to listen to what we went through and they're going to be like, oh crap, I don't want to go through that. I've got two beautiful kids, 6 and 9 years old, Mason and Clayton. They're amazing little boys.
Right.
And they're full of piss and vinegar. They tick me off. They take me to the edge of my emotion and bring it back. They're awesome. My wife kind of does the same thing, or maybe I do that to her. But we've been married now for 14 years. We just celebrated our 14th anniversary.
Right.
Happily married, never going to get divorced. Nothing's ever going to come between us. But that was how I started our marriage. I knew that I was never going to get divorced, regardless of how difficult it was.
Right.
Even if it was me causing the issue. And I thought that my partner would be willing to put up with whatever amount of bullshit I was going to put her through, because that's how I started, not understanding that I was actually driving her away the whole time. That level of just me almost being delusional about the effect that I had on other people. I was literally being like a wrecking ball, just because I was just so cocksure and headstrong to get through whatever it was. I could just endure whatever and make it happen. And so for context, I spent 15, 16 years old. I slept on the basement floor of my buddy's, parents' house. I stayed on their floor. I paid her parents' rent, but I was at least at a place to stay. And that's where I kind of came from. So I thought, since it's not that, it can't really be that bad.
Right. Yeah.
So if you wife told me that you wanted to be with me, you knew that since we're not there anymore, so I'm not sleeping on the basement floor of my buddy's, parents' place. Since we're not there, you ain't gonna leave, because it's never gonna be that bad. The reality was, though, is as you get away from the military, as you get away from the Marine Corps, there's a lot of kind of knowns and very stable things about that infrastructure that are removed whenever you're taken away. That now all of a sudden, those stable things where you're able to kind of develop perspective and be around some really, people who have your best interest and really supportive, when you take that away and you came in there thinking that you were a free radical, things can start to come apart at the seams. And that's exactly what took place whenever we transitioned out of the military. Those knowns were gone. And so there she is, pregnant with our first baby, with a husband who was just coming apart at the seams, drinking alcohol to cope with the feelings of having to deal with, all the craziness, trying to process how to make good decisions, still having some ego issues, not willing to ask people questions and take advice and coaching, thinking that I could outwork every problem that's out there. All of that was a perfect recipe for her saying, listen, if you don't stop drinking, if you don't slow down, if you don't focus your attention, I'm gone. And I can't tell you, she had to do that more than once with me. And
and I love how you're sharing this with us, Stephen, because again, there's folks who are going through. There are folks who are going to go through this. There are people who are in it, and then there's people like us who are post some of this stuff. So the great thing is, I love how where you are today in the present, but again, you're sharing with us, but it wasn't always this way for 14 years. So. No. So I appreciate you opening up about that. And so now let's get to it. She your beautiful bride, and you know how much I respect your wife and love your family.
Yeah, she's amazing.
She looks at you, which again, you guys are like a power couple. If you get divorced, we're gonna riot. But she looks at you.
That ain't happening.
She looks at you. She goes, "All right, here's the ultimatum. Either you change the following 4 or 5 things, or I'm out." Wow.
Yeah. And it was that simple. So I ran around with a crew for a number of years. I ran a multi-level marketing business at the same time that I was trying to, go build other things. I've always been a tinkerer or an entrepreneur.
Right.
Never really understanding the idiosyncrasies associated with revenue, cost, capital versus operational expenditures, all the things about running a business that, are supposed to take place. There was no growth trajectory whatsoever. I just was dabbling. And so I didn't understand the whole process that I needed to go through in order to make sure that I was doing things, first of all, legally, let alone, right, in compliance, doing things in a way that produced a quality outcome consistently. I was just willing to work. And the thing is when my wife told me that, I knew that myself. Like, I think it's true for everybody who's in it right now. You'd reference the kind of 3 phases: people who are in it, people who are just starting to experience, and then people who are on the post side of it. At the beginning of it, I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought it was actually, even though I could drink and I could, do I could go out and work.
Right.
Like it was going to be okay, and that's kind of a lie that you tell yourself, especially as a male. You think that it's not really that big of a deal. Like, you're like, it's no big deal. I referenced a little bit earlier about your eyes and your ears. So whatever thing that it is that you think is not that big of a deal, it will actually probably be your undoing.
Yeah, right.
So if it's you looking at pornography, and I know a lot of single, first-term Marines or even just folks who've been in the military for some time, if they go, to a training op and they decide to go to a strip club, or if they go do, some things they're not supposed to, that they know they're not supposed to, that kind of feels good at the moment. Listen, I mean, how would you feel, first of all, if your significant other wasn't with Jody? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you weren't, if she wasn't going around doing that same thing, you probably wouldn't feel too good. And then you'd act out and get even more upset, and that exasperates the problem. Listen, whatever the thing is, whether it's alcohol, whether it's the opposite sex, or if it's an overindulgence in something that you're not supposed to be doing, that's the thing that you already know you probably need to stop. And it sounds an awful lot like this. It's no big deal. It's just a text message to this girl that, was a friend of mine from back in the day. And it's no big deal. It's just a text. We're just playing. I can't tell you how many marriages have broken apart because what happens is that your trust starts to erode in that person and that person's decision making. And then yourself, you start to lower your trust in your own decision making. And then the combination of both of y'all not trusting each other and you not trusting yourself.
Right.
Tell me how that's supposed to end up working well for people.
And Stephen, I like too how you talked about the thing. Everybody has a thing or things. Yeah. And kind of like what you had highlighted, your thing was
mine was alcohol. Mine was alcohol.
Straight alcohol, up. You know what I mean? So I like that how, someone you got to identify with that. I know mine was I didn't listen. But so everyone has a different thing. And I like how you brought that up.
But you were a drill instructor too, though. I mean, your story is a little bit different because you didn't listen, but you were like, I'll listen. No. And then once they're gone, I'm gonna go do my thing. I'm gonna go do what Mario wants to do and watch it happen.
We're gonna get back to you, man.
All right. I was gonna say, all right, cool.
No, hey, you got me smiling, but no. So again, I like how you brought up, a thing, whatever that thing is, in how your thought process you may be thinking that your thought process is productive, but in all actuality, your thought process is actually a detriment.
But it depends on what your goal is. My goal was to be having a happily fruitful marriage.
Yeah.
And I wasn't willing to give up anything else in order to have that outcome. However, the things that I was doing were working against me. So I was actually working against myself in order to make that happen.
Wow. And so when do you recall the moment or the phase where you said, you know what, let me start thinking a different way?
Yeah, I was sitting. So my wife and I it was back in 2015, 2016. I was sitting on the stairs, and we had lived in Austin at the time. So again, the scenario is I'm working. I'm actually the VP of sales for an ag tech startup down in Austin. We were building out an ag technology platform. We're talking with the largest meat producers on the planet. We're buying a whole bunch of inventory as a company. I'm helping train a new sales team on how to orient themselves in this new market. I'm also on the side. I was identifying some other third-party logistics startups opportunity. Like I was putting some things together on the side that was eventually going to be a project that I was going to start and run, connected to what I was doing full time during the day. And I was still drinking. And I wasn't drinking like I was coping, knowing what I know now about the way my brain works. I was coping. I didn't understand what it was that I was doing. I was drinking because that's how I medicated myself. I dealt like how I shut my brain off to deal with the problems that were existing that I was creating as I drank.
Right.
And obviously that's not the right solution. I was sitting on the stairs, and my wife, she looked up at me and she just said, "Stephen, what I want is I want you." Wow. And that was in my mind. I thought what my family needed was the product of my work. I thought my family needed the security that came from how effective I was in my work, not me. Right. So, I think a lot of service members run into this issue, and we've talked about this before. We think the product of my work means money. So if I eliminate me from that equation, if I commit suicide, for instance,
right,
and my life insurance policy kicks in, my family's good because they got money. And that's the biggest lie. Right. Well, it's not the biggest. It's one of the biggest. It's like a symptom of one of the bigger lies that you can buy into. It's not money. It's you. So you being there to play board games with your kids, you shutting up and listening to your wife. I mean, what followed her statement there, I didn't speak to my wife for about a month. And when I say I didn't speak to her, I feel really compelled to insert a creative solution all the time because that's just what I do. That's how I ideate. That's where I get my energy from. But I needed to stop. So she was talking to me, telling me that. And I just said, okay. And I let everything go. And I felt this pressure just come up off of my back. And, depending upon how you want to interpret things, I believe that there was a spirit of pride that died at that moment and did not have the same power that it did over me at that time. So whenever I let go, I wasn't as reactive to that. I was literally getting played by this spirit because my ego and my pride were messing with me so bad that I didn't have an opportunity to just kind of look at my wife and say, okay. And, you fast forward a couple of years, and there's some other stories that I can share in there, but one in particular, we had decided to go as a family to Colorado and go camp in the mountains for like a week. And we did. This is, after not talking with her and us kind of going through the process, me going and getting some therapy, me stopping drinking.
So let me just, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Why the time, the stoppage, was that where you reflecting?
Okay, good. Cool. Yeah, I didn't complete that thought. I apologize. But
no worries.
So the reason why I stopped is I needed to, so the way that I was thinking, I felt like I always needed to come up with a creative solution or talk and ideate.
Right.
What I needed to do is I needed to stop and decompress. I think Jocko calls it like the observe, orient, decide, act. So I was I was observing, but not orienting. So I
Mm.
was like, observe, decide, act. I was skipping the step. I wasn't listening. I was hearing and reacting to my wife. I was seeing what was happening in the marketplace, and I was inserting a solution. I would not stop and think. As a matter of fact, to even circumvent that, sometimes I would look around people that were around me and what was happening. I would go and immediately to them and ask them for the answer. And then I would go implement whatever solution they came up with.
Wow.
Instead of stopping and going, I need to just listen. My wife's an incredibly wise and intelligent and an incredible woman, but her and I together is better than her alone. And her and I together is better than me alone. So I needed to stop, and I needed to take a moment and process what was going on in order to make things happen. I mean,
I like how
you know what I'm saying?
and earlier you mentioned choices, and and I like how you apply thought during that situation.
We got a little guy.
Look at handsome little guy. That's awesome. But I like how you apply thought to your turbulence, if you will, and and it was the thought that got you through, that made the changes where you got a wonderful family. You're doing great as an entrepreneur and a professional, an executive professional. And I mean, you guys all heard it from Stephen Cologne. He's mentioned he dropped some good gems, if you will, but I love how, again, you got out of the emotions and then now look where we are today when you apply some thought. Do you have any closing remarks or anything to leave our viewers and listeners? This amazing podcast that I got you on.
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, I appreciate the time. So all the things that you're saying about me that are really, really nice. They sound fantastic.
They're true.
But they come around to you. Like the support that you showed me in that moment, whenever I was a corporal going through a lot of the tumultuousness of the deployment. And it wasn't really even about the deployment, because our deployment wasn't nearly what it was for you. When you talk about your follow-up appointment, your second deployment that you went on, it was more so just being removed. So a good example of that is you showed me some support whenever we were getting ready to go over to Iraq. And you showed me some support because you listened to me, and you shared some stories with me that connected you, and you didn't bullshit. You were like, listen, I've been through some shit. and I didn't think at the time that being away from my wife for as long as we were away, and us being, having to deal with the same crap of just letting your imagination run wild.
Right.
You helped me focus my attention for a short period of time. And you actually helped me get through that deployment with my wife. And I said, you know what, babe, how we're going to make it through this deployment is something called Picture Fridays. So we have an opportunity to make it through this deployment by tabulating pictures throughout the week. And then we're going to share them on Fridays. We got something to look forward to. So we could break up this entire 7-month deployment into little 1-week intervals, so we could actually digest that time. And it actually gave us something to talk about throughout the week. It took our mind off of what we were doing a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's what helped us get through that deployment. So my encouragement to you is, it feels, probably whoever's listening, whatever's going through you right now, or whatever's happening, it may not seem like you have the ability to get through it. But if you can categorize what's happening into smaller chunks to try to come up with that's what Get Some Wins is all about. That's when we say on Knucklehead Podcast, get some wins. Yeah. First of all of that inertia and that overwhelming feeling didn't happen overnight.
Right.
It took little decisions every single day to have that start to work against you to where it felt like a tidal wave now. So why would the solution be any different? It's going to be those small little decisions that need to start working in your favor, so you can start to develop inertia and momentum to come out of whatever it is you're coming out of. And that's also why we say don't be beta, right? Don't be beta means it's going to suck. You're going to get kicked in the nuts and punched in the mouth and it's going to have some bloody noses, because that's what happens to productive, successful, integrity-filled people. We have to work harder because we don't cut corners. We have to be more resilient because it's a byproduct of the environment that we put ourselves in.
Right. Yeah.
And this is not just true for military folks. This is also true for civilians, because civilians right now are going through, the COVID environment, right? Or or depending upon where you're listening to this podcast, whatever is going on in your geopolitical sphere right now, you're running into some issues or challenges where you're at. Adversity works that way, and life's not fair. So when things work against you, what are you made of? Do you want to just roll over and wet on yourself and be a victim? Or are you going to orient yourself in a way that where you say, you know what, no, I can find some people who I want to be around, and I can actually go work towards making a productive outcome for myself and my family. And how can I make whatever this is work to my advantage? And that's the hard part. The easiest part is to make some surface level observation and start complaining about it.
Right.
That doesn't take anything special whatsoever to do that. It's what are you going to do to come out of it?
No, I totally agree. And ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't been on Knucklehead Podcast, go out there, give them a 5-star rating because Stephen is a 5-star man, and they got great content. Knucklehead Media Group is doing some amazing things. Go on his Instagram, his Twitter, Facebook, you name it, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Find Stephen Cologne, LinkedIn. Find Stephen Cologne.
Yep.
Knucklehead Podcast, Knucklehead Media Group.
Yeah, if you want to go find out about us, and we're Knucklehead.agency, but go check us out. I appreciate the opportunity to always talk authentically with people. I love being able to stop and share, especially with people who made some significant help to me at the time where I didn't even know that I needed it, and that was you. So I appreciate you, Mario, more than I can let you know.
No, I appreciate you, man. No, I do. And ladies and gentlemen, you guys can follow us on also those platforms, Unarmored Talk on Apple, Google, and Spotify, and your other platform of choice. Leave us a rating and review. If it's a 1, we don't care. Give us a 1-star and tell us the truth so we can make it better. And also, you can go to my YouTube channel at Mario Fields YouTube and watch this interview live. Until next time, see you guys later.
Appreciate it.